What's good, folks? Welcome to another edition of the Cover One Film Room, the show that gives you the hows and the whys behind both the good and the bad of the Buffalo Bills. I am one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Erik Turner. And Erik, we continue our musical chairs of when we drop the episode, like sometimes live, sometimes recorded, Monday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon. Here we are, getting a little bit closer to our in-season type of feel and vibe, but nonetheless, we are here to break down some tape, talk about some guys in 2025 that may be a bit overlooked or overshadowed for a variety of reasons right now, and an exciting piece to lead off the show with. But before we get into that, how you doing? How you feeling? How's it going?
Good. Yeah. Like you said, we're recording on a Wednesday for the first time in a very long time.
Feels weird.
It does feel weird. And, it's usually I have Sunday, Mondays off. So, you do a great job of adjusting your schedules to kind of work around my free Mondays, and it allows me to do some of the film on Sundays, but then obviously bring it to the film room on Mondays. And a little teaser: next Monday we're going to be recording with Dwayne Carter, defensive tackle for the Bills, so keep an eye on that. If you miss any of those other player episodes, go back and watch that. Now's a really good time to kind of get caught up on that type of content and learn the R&D phase of the off season, as I like to put it. But yeah, as you said, man, we're recording on a Wednesday. But there was some interesting news that just broke before we went live. Isn't that right, Ant?
Yeah, man, I kind of read it and was like, oh, cool. And now I'm just kind of like really taking it in. The Buffalo Bills will be featured on Hard Knocks this upcoming season. So, and then they break it down like an in-season grouping and then the off-season training camp type of deal. The Bills will be on the training camp type of deal, kind of how Hard Knocks started. The in-season episodes will focus on the NFC East as a whole, as the entire division. But I think I don't know how certain people feel. I think this is pretty cool. And just another, they're going to be giving away a lot of secrets. Things that we yelled at for.
And we're not going to be to blame.
I know, which is pretty nice this time around. But
so many secrets.
Right? So many secrets. I think it's cool. It's just another, I don't know, like flag planted of the further they get away from the drought era and the more they get towards being a prominent team in the league. Like it's still, 5 division championships straight and multiple, AFC championship appearances and favorites to win the Super Bowl, so on and so forth the last several years. But it still like shocks me that oh, look at all these primetime games. And like, oh, they're the feature on Hard Knocks. Like, I think that's pretty cool. And just, again, another example of really how far this team and this organization has come from a time that we never thought they would escape just absolute terribleness.
I'm excited about it. There's some, cool narratives that will come out of camp, and we'll get to see some cool access, behind the scenes stuff. And they do a great job. HBO, anything they touch is gold, and they do a great job of storytelling and filming things. So that'll be exciting. Any type of film or content that we can get, especially during the, the dog days of camp, that'll be fun to kind of dig into and analyze, which I'm sure we'll have several episodes where we're going to be analyzing some of the stuff that we see, which is always, fun for us as well. And again, a good time to be doing that type of stuff during training camp. I'm sure what's also going to be cool about that is we do attend several of the practices during training camp. So we'll have some comments and analysis and opinions being, on the ground, the boots on the ground at the time, but also comparing it and contrasting it with what they captured on film eventually will be cool to do. And I'm happy it's a training camp edition, not an inside the season type of episode for Hard Knocks.
That'll be cool too. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. We will probably see the camera crews and everything kind of working there. Like I've never been to a training camp where a team has been featured on Hard Knocks, so that's kind of interesting. And and I guess again, it shouldn't be surprising given where the team is currently within the landscape of the NFL and having the current MVP and Josh Allen. But I was just like, wow, the Bills, really? And then I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And now as we right before we went live, as the intro was starting, it kind of like hit me. I was like, this is pretty cool. Because I know that the news dropped maybe like a half hour or 40-some minutes ago, but I just saw it as we went live. And I said it to you. I was like, oh, this. And you were like, yeah,
as I
Like,
pulled in. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, that's cool. That'll be interesting to talk about.
I didn't see anything until we went. Yeah, we got in the room here, which was pretty cool. Nice piece to see for the Buffalo Bills continuing on this upwards trajectory as a team and as a franchise in terms of national recognition and appreciation, and maybe some more Bills fans get born out of this type of access, which is a cool thing to see. And like you said, HBO does such a great job, so
Mhm.
very excited to see that coming down the pike. Erik, the focus of this episode, we titled it "Overcoming Struggles, Unlocking Potential Bills in 2025." We wanted to focus this episode on several players that we thought were potentially due for a bounce back or a breakout or a revival in 2025. We did somewhat of a similar episode last offseason. One of the big guys, not to pat ourselves on the back, but one of the guys we talked about a lot was Christian Medford. He obviously had a good season.
Yeah.
There's several guys on this team who I I guess I just find the polarizing nature of them a little
Mhm.
surprising recently. Like, several of these guys we're gonna cover seems like they've just been completely written off by the fan base in a lot of ways, almost to the point of like, get rid of them, we don't need them, or bury them on the depth chart, or they're useless. And then some other guys that maybe just aren't being talked about enough. I think it's a very interesting mix of the guys we're going to be covering in this episode, given kind of where they are in the landscape of the team amongst fans and in the conversation, and what they mean to this team if they do have a revival or a breakout, and what that could do going forward.
And the first guy that I think we both agreed on was wide receiver Curtis Samuel, and obviously he's a veteran, and he's been in the league since 2017. So I don't think I didn't want to call him a breakout
Yeah.
candidate, more of like a breakthrough candidate, but mainly because of his role and usage in the Bill scheme. Health, as long as
Yep.
his health is straight, if his health is straight, then I think he could be one of those guys that could break through for the Bills offense. I think he's a guy that towards the end of last season, you started to see his role start to form, back half of season and into the
Mhm.
playoffs. And I just think the Bills only have a handful of guys, maybe even a couple guys that offer the skill set that he has when we're talking, usage, alignment, versatility, his usage, whether he's outside or inside, his ability to get vertical with his speed, but also take those passes and screens behind the line of scrimmage. He's very dynamic when he's healthy. Again, when he is healthy. And I think that he is a guy that I could see being a breakthrough type player in the Bills offense in year 2 in this offense.
Yeah, like you mentioned, he was at the top of both of our lists. And for me, it was really going back to training camp last year. He was one of the major takeaways, like
Mhm.
right from the jump of camp, how he was being used. He was the adjuster almost every time he was out there. He was being used to create horizontal leverage, vertical stretch. He was getting the ball. He was the focal point in terms of route concepts and the distribution. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. Brady had success with him
Mhm.
before. He probably had a key hand in being like, I want this guy in on the offense. This all tracks. And then he gets that toe injury that he tried to play through,
Yeah.
lingered for a majority of the year. And I think that significantly hindered his play style, his usage. And I think that's a big reason he kind of got put on the back burner for a lot of fans. But we saw as the year went on, and he got a little healthier and a little healthier, the impact that he was able to have down the stretch. I mean, you're seeing the big plays downfield against
Yeah.
Denver, but that you're also seeing some of the bubbles and the underneath stuff, and he's able to shift and break a tackle and get forward and create yards after catch. And his skill set, like you said, is important because it's not one that's just prevalent across the board. He's a different type of receiver than Keon Coleman is, and a different type of receiver than Josh Palmer is, and a different type of receiver than Khalil Shakir is, and what he offers and how you can use him. And given how he started to improve a little bit, getting healthier down the stretch, I think that's something that a lot of folks kind of either forgot or really haven't shined enough light upon, especially when you consider how he was used early on in camp coming out last year.
And when you take his skills and traits and you mix it with the scheming of Joe Brady, I
Mhm.
do like where they could go now in year 2 with him, because Brady does a great job with his formations and specifically the alignment and spacing of the receivers, whether it's a boundary receiver or a slot receiver. He does a great job of keeping guys like Curtis Samuel off the line of scrimmage, away from press. So yeah, maybe he is the furthest receiver outside and on the line of scrimmage, but maybe because of a condensed set or a tight split, that corner has to play off coverage or has to play softer because they want to maintain their spacing on the defensive side of the ball. So I think Brady does a great job with his formations and alignment of guys that are of the smaller stature, guys like Shakir and like Samuel and even Elijah Moore, who we'll talk about here in a second, of getting those guys in positions where they don't have to see press all that often or press jam at the line of scrimmage, and they can get those free releases and use their speed to get into those routes. And I think that's why I love Brandon Beane hedging his bet with, okay, Curtis Samuel has had health issues over the years. Well, guess what? We're going to bring in Elijah Moore, who can do a lot of the same things that Curtis Samuel can do, that Khalil Shakir can do. And so he kind of hedges bets. And I love that. When you can stack guys like that have that versatility, because you'll see a lot of film on Elijah Moore where he's the boundary receiver on the line of scrimmage, but he has a tight set or a tight alignment, and the guy can't press. And now they're running shot calls on the outside to him. So getting these wide receivers, typically of the smaller stature, maybe more slot guys, but running them from tight splits to almost play from a quasi slot alignment.
Yeah, and I'm kind of low key excited for what Elijah Moore can do, because he's got some good deception at times in his stem and some of the things that he can do. It's a fun piece. But that's a good call with kind of, being hedging his bets when it comes to that position group. And I also think it kind of emphasizes maybe a little bit that type of skill set or that type of role and how important they think it might be to this team. And Samuel, to kind of piggyback onto that as we start to load up the film for him, he just fits so much of the pre-snap motion things and the leverage things and what you can do. Like, his skill set and how he operates is such a prime candidate for that type of pre-snap action. But then, like you said, the ability to work on that behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage stuff, but also vertically. But you can't do any of that if you got a busted wheel. And he had a significantly busted wheel for the majority of the year. And, this first one is that we have queued up here is against the Chiefs towards, the later part of the season. And this, I think, is one of the games where he really started to get going, started to feel a little healthier, and you started to see what he could do if the wheels started to get a little cleaner for him.
Right. And to the top of the screen, you're seeing Khalil Shakir. And he, again, it's kind of that trips bunch set with a tight end, Dawson Knox as well, Curtis Samuel's in the slot. And so, again, you have essentially, like I said, Curtis Samuel is probably best as a slot guy, more of a vertical stretch type of guy from the slot. But look at Shakir. He's a boundary receiver. But then you see that little switch right at the snap, and that outside corner follows Shakir. And so now you have a safety and a DB banjo wing. So they're switching based on the release, a tight end, and then Samuel. And so you see some space created for Samuel. If you give that guy space, again, then with the ball in his hands, he can do things like this to get yards after the catch.
This is one of the first plays that stuck in my mind of like, man, when he started to get a little healthier, we started to see what he can do. And you hit it right there. Like, once he gets the ball in his hands, how natural he goes from making that catch to planning and then just shaking guys and adding some of that elusiveness to this offense once he gets the ball in his hands. And one of the few guys on the team who can really do that. And I like the design, like you highlighted. I remember when we talked about this after this game, you have that look, you get that pre-snap motion from Shakir, and now Knox becomes the one. Shakir is briefly the two, but then you get the little switch between Shakir and Samuel. So now Shakir is the three, Samuel's the two, Knox is the one. And look what it does to the Chiefs secondary as they're trying to match. Justin Reed was initially kind of on Samuel a bit, number 20 there, but he's out leveraged. So he tries to work to Knox, which leaves Najee Johnson out there, number 13, who you have highlighted, responsible for Samuel. But just look at all the separation, look at all the space. And then again, at this point in the year, this was week 11. He started to get a little healthier. Now he's in a spot to take advantage of that space, take advantage of that leverage, and he made a nice play.
And I just love his ability because of his speed and change of direction and just kind of that dynamic playmaker trait that he has. And we saw this late in the year where the Bills are in that 4-by-1 set. So you got 4 eligibles to the bottom of the screen, but they isolated Samuel to the top of the screen on what I believe is third down here. And I just love this route. They ran it a couple times towards the back end of this year. So he makes it look like he's going to run that mesh, that crossing route, but you see him pop back out and return back out to the boundary. Very good route. Separation, and of course, a first down there for Curtis Samuel.
We saw this route incorporated a decent amount throughout the season for the Bills. They would usually kind of, instead of using like a traditional hitch on a smash concept, they'd use this like little whip and like stop him underneath and pair that with a corner. But what was really interesting with Samuel is earlier in the year, this route, there was less hip sync and less kind of planting and pushing off. Again, not to keep banging this drum, but probably because you got turf toe and your foot is killing you and you can't really plant. Look at the difference here, like how little or how minimal the steps are, the sink. He's able to push, plant, his feet almost stick right in the turf. And you see the corner, he almost kind of has to like hitch his feet a little bit to catch his balance. Samuel's feet are almost glued into that turf. You just see the stop, bang, the plant, and the pop back outside. That's some nice shiftiness and suddenness for a guy who's operating out of that spot against the guy who's trying to stay close. You can shift and switch suddenly and then get open.
Yeah, and again, against man coverage, he's going to help in the man coverage beaters, category when it comes to Joe Brady's play sheet. Same play from the Ravens playoff game. Once again, making it look like he's running that crosser. Then you see him slip a little bit, because of the field conditions, but come out of it on third down. Once again, going to him versus man coverage with this, whip or return route to the boundary at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, this time he's against Wiggins for the Ravens, who lacks a little polish as a corner, but a lot of juice, super fast. And again, the track and the field will influence this a little bit, but Samuel able to keep his feet and also show how he can beat guys with his speed and with his ability who also have speed. It's not like, oh, okay, well, he can cook a corner for the Pats who might be a little slower, might not be up to snuff because they have injuries at that spot. This is a first-round pick for the Ravens last year. This is a guy who plays with speed, who plays with a lot of juice, who has closing ability. Samuel's speed can be real enough to get him in and out of these breaks and win on these type of leverage-creating routes, provided, again, he can stay healthy. And if he's not, like we talked about, the Bills will kind of hedge their bets a little bit with this type of role.
Yeah, here's Joe Brady once again, putting his offense and his players in positions.
Of course, I feel so bad for Surtain on this one because he's just lost, which is crazy because he's so good.
He's so good, but again, even the best are going to have trouble adjusting if you're pattern matching versus this dirty bunch, this four eligible receiver or quad set to the top of the screen. You see the really more from guys with speed like Curtis Samuel. Especially when we're talking as good as the Bills run game is, when they get these single high looks, the Bills got to have plays. They got to have formations. They got to have calls that can stretch the defense, stretch that post safety, especially you're talking going across the field on those deep overs, those deep crossing routes. And you can only do that if you have speed.
That just adds another element. If they can pair that bully, run through your face type of aspect they have with the run game, but then also create explosives downfield, it becomes even harder to stop this offense. And in an offense that was already that allows them to separate a little bit. And Brady's design, like you talked about, that helped create that miscommunication early on. But that is low effort for Josh Allen because of how open the receiver is, but then also because of what the receiver does with the ball in his hands after the catch. And anything you can do to make Josh Allen's life easier and the run game's life easier is going to pay huge dividends considering how this offense is built.
So we both hope that Samuel can break through for the Bills offense. I think they're going to lean on him a little more than they had to last year. So hopefully his health is up to snuff and up to par because I do think he could have a breakthrough season in the Bills offense under Joe Brady in year 2. Another guy that you and Kendall did a little film room session on last week, I believe, who is very polarizing, very, very polarizing. Of course, you brought some film, you brought the advanced analytics, you brought the big guns and Kendall Mursky. It was a great episode. Tight end Dalton Kincaid. And it's an interesting player to pick as a breakthrough or revival type player. But I think that's because of the expectations that Bills analysts, fans, fantasy, everyone expected him to be the go-to guy. And as we saw early in the season last year, I think opposing defensive coordinators did as well. And he had certain amount of gravity to open up things for others. Obviously, some injuries kind of slowed his season down. There's a multitude of reasons that we're going to get into. So Dalton Kincaid, he's a guy that we believe could have not a necessarily breakthrough season, because I think that first season was kind of breakout-ish. Especially if you're talking statistically for Bills tight ends, Bills players historically, maybe not overall tight ends, but I think he had a great first year, kind of disappointing second season, but a guy we could see having, again, a big role for the Bills offense in 2025.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. I think the first season really was a success, especially when you're talking a coordinator change midseason. You still have a target monster in Stephon Diggs getting a lot of work. And so the productivity that Kincaid had, thought pointing to a really strong rookie year, which is why so many people expected so much from him going into year two, us included. We talked about him kind of being the focal point or the tip of the spear in the passing attack. We talked about what we wanted to see from him and from Brady in terms of his usage. And yeah, early on, he got a lot of attention, got some gravity, created some opportunities for others, but then bangs his shoulder up or his collarbone, bangs the knee up, plays through both of those things. Between that and some of the other pieces we'll get into, we just didn't see the level of production or effectiveness that I think we wanted to see from him and that the fan base wanted to see from him. And yeah, I think he might be the most polarizing player on the Bills, maybe. Like, he's nowhere near Tremaine Edmonds territory.
Yeah.
But, you mentioned the episode I did last week, and you and I were talking offline. The whole reason I just did that episode was because a couple weeks before, I had tweeted something about him being an important part of the passing game. And so much of the conversation is like, oh, the Bills didn't get enough receivers. They didn't draft a receiver for Allen, the weapons for Allen. And I felt like a lot of the conversation was forgetting about the Bills taking a pass-catching tight end in the first round a couple years ago and how good he was and what that meant. And the conversation was it just went one of two ways. Everybody either said, oh, well, he got injured last year, he'll be fine. And everybody else said, no, he's awful. It was a horrible pick. He's done. Trade him, get rid of him, put, Jackson Hawes. Oh, I said Jackson instead of Spencer. Put Jackson,
You got it.
I got it. Put Jackson Hawes ahead of him or give Reggie Gilliam more snaps. And I think that's why he cracks this list in this episode as well, in terms of like a revival, not necessarily a breakout because of what we thought his rookie year was.
Right.
But it really does seem like he's getting forgotten about or written off by a lot of the fan base because of the year he had last year. And granted, there were some things that, are tied to him and where he's limited and what he can and can't do. But there are some other things that we're going to break down that shows just kind of where some of those disconnects were and why he is such a candidate for a breakout or revival, however you want to verbalize it, this year in 2025.
And I will say, I think he got a fair amount of looks last year. So listen to some of these stats, courtesy of True Media. Team target percentage. So just on the Bills, it was at 14.7%. That was second on the team, 15th overall for tight ends. Target percentage overall was 25%. So that's like the target percentage is targets per route. That was fifth for tight ends. 25% is fifth for tight ends. Second on the team, McBride, who you also been breaking down a bunch of recently, is first at 27.5%. Bowers at 25.9%. Bowers is third. So Kincaid was getting looks when he was running routes. They were looking at him. He was getting the targets and looks that you want to see from a first-round tight end. He was ninth in first read percentage for tight ends at 20.9%, and he had the seventh overall separation score for tight ends, courtesy of the Fantasy Points data suite. So he got looks last year, Anthony. Now, again, I do think the injury played a part, especially when he came back. Obviously, the volume of targets kind of went down, and the type of targets weren't, again, with that injury to his leg, they weren't as dynamic as the first half of the year before. Was it week 10? I think he got hurt, but he got his looks in year two in the Bills offense.
He was also, some fun facts with that. He was first in deep targets amongst tight end, which are targets of 20 or more air yards. He was first in that category with 13. He was also eighth in targets at or behind the line of scrimmage. I feel like that makes sense for a lot of fans. He got a lot of those pass tag looks like Shakir did, where Allen's just checking numbers and he's spitting the ball out fast to Kincaid. But the deep ones, I think, were really indicative of the disconnect between him and Allen at times. You also talked about inbreakers and things which we're going to talk about in this episode, but that was a significant part as well. Like there was just this disconnect between him and Allen, and sometimes it was on him, sometimes it was on Allen, sometimes it was a little bit of both, and their wires getting crossed a little bit. And literally, I feel like it's like the Stephon Diggs conversation from a couple years ago, like if 4 or 5 of these connect, maybe we're not even having this conversation at all. But it's funny to just think of how he was used and where he was used and just how slightly off they were, and him playing through the injuries and the target share and all these pieces that speak to why he could have a bounce back, but it's just not really getting talked about.
So you said it, man. I think it's the rapport. I think even the most casual fan could see that in the broadcast footage and some of the replays. There was some kind of rapport, lack of chemistry, but also it led to the lack of quality targets. And they're both to blame, Josh Allen and Dalton Kincaid. I mean, everyone talks about the reception percentage, and again, we don't like to use this stat
Mhm.
unless we're backing it up, which we're going to back it up with film and show you the why behind it, because there's a lot to be desired when you talk reception percentage, because a lot of these passes are seen as uncatchable, but they still count against Dalton Kincaid. So his reception percentage was 61.7%. That was 44th out of 45 tight ends last year. And on passes 11 plus yards down the field, he had 24 targets, 11 were catchable. 24 targets, 11 were catchable.
That's terrible. In case you're counting at home.
Yeah,
That's
it's not
terrible.
good. 7 receptions on the 11 catchable targets and 2 drops. So we're going to show you some of these plays down the field. Again, 11 plus yards, 11 yards down the field, and show you the why. And some of them are going to debatable. Some of you guys are going to say he should have caught that. Some of you are going to say, hey, Josh, that was an inaccurate pass. But both are to blame. And I think Josh took accountability for that at the end of the season, saying he's got to do a better job, of placing passes to Dalton Kincaid. And again, we're going to show you that in film, but it was obvious there was some type of struggle with chemistry and rapport, which led to some bad quality, uncatchable type plays down the field for Dalton Kincaid.
And it was so frustrating to see that between Allen and a guy like Kincaid, who is so good at finding space and leveraging routes and having a feel for zone and knowing where to go and where to sit and where to stop it. It just seemed like so much of it was Allen thought he was going to keep going, and Kincaid was like, no, I should sit right here. And then the next time Kincaid was like, okay, I'll sit right here. And Allen was like, nope, he's going to keep going. And then some of the deeper routes, like you talked about, and we're going to show, like those 11 plus routes, it was just like, did Allen expect him to cut at a different angle? Did he expect him to be a little sharper? Or if he's running a corner route, did he expect it a little flatter?
Right.
Did he expect it a little more on a 45-degree angle? Because even some of the catches that Kincaid made deep, he's still having to adjust. And it just seemed like a lack of, even when things were working, there was a lack of cleanliness to their connection. And it showed up big time, obviously, in just the uncatchable balls and some of the poor placement. And when you have it happen that much and you're not seeing it happen with other guys, it comes down to the rapport and chemistry, like you said, between both guys.
So let's talk through some of these plays, and I tweeted about it yesterday and how it mainly happened on like these crossing routes. So these dig routes, these deep overs, these crossing routes. You're going to see it sometimes in structure, sometimes out of structure. So let's take a look. This is from the Dolphins game. He's in the slot, top of the screen, does a great job of working through the rub. And then you see him get over the top, over the middle. Here comes Jordan Poyer. So he's sitting right there. So either he's going to go right here, right into traffic. And you see a guy down right here in Dawson Knox. So Kincaid says, you know what? I'm going to take it over the top. Not a bad decision, right? Not a bad decision.
I love how he IDs it too. He sees Poyer and is like, oh, let me find space.
Yep. So he goes over the top of Poyer, and it looks, you'll see it from the end zone angle. His eyes are up looking at Josh, but it kind of looks body-wise like he kind of lightens up. So I assumed he was probably going to take it further down the field, but Josh throws it differently. He throws more of a bullet, and Kincaid's not able to reel it in on the back end. So this pass, again, down the field, goes incomplete.
Yeah, this is a great example to lead off with some of the conversation that we're having here. And one of the things I just mentioned, like, and you hit it on the head, so I don't have too much to add. Bang, the body language right there. As Kincaid is looking at Allen, you can see exactly the angle that he's looking to take, where his numbers are pointed. He's looking to take it more like closer to a 45-degree angle. Like, let me continue upfield to the 20, maybe a little past it. Allen throws him more on a flat line, kind of directly across the 20, where Kincaid looked like he was trying to work past it and make a catch towards the sideline, tap the feet, try and work up the sideline. Allen threw him a bit flatter, and it goes from a spot where Kincaid worked a space, found an opening, but now he's got to try and make this catch and scrape it off the turf downfield. Probably still should have caught it, but that's a hard catch. It's not a great ball from Allen. Again, a great one to lead off with, where there's a disconnect. It's muddy. Who's to blame? A little bit of both. Here's what we think should have happened.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because, again, it looked like he was trying to take it to the corner, a little more to the boundary, and Josh throws it flat. It's a bullet. It's low, and you got to think about the tracking right here. He's probably losing the ball at
Yep.
some point, with Poyer kind of in the peripheral there. And now he's trying to track it at that speed and that throw on the line from Josh Allen. Again, tough throw. Probably could have caught it, but that's still a tough catch, I should say.
Yeah.
And it harkens back to the lack of chemistry, lack of rapport, and just their struggles of reading each other. Sometimes it's funny. I said in the Discord, it's so interesting to me because when you talk about Dalton Kincaid and his route running and his movement skills, they're smooth, they're fluid.
Yes.
But to me, he's not the fastest guy. So
No.
to me, it's like I wonder if Josh has issues or struggles kind of reading the body language of Dalton Kincaid. If it almost works against him, because if you threw Emmanuel Sanders or a Cole Beasley out there, smaller guys in stature, but quick, in and out of breaks, they do a great job of letting the quarterback know when they're going in and out of these breaks or where they're going to break. I feel like that suddenness and quickness at the top of a route and the top of a break maybe is better for Josh, but the fluidity and the smoothness of Kincaid is great for getting separation, 7th in separation score last year. But I feel at times Josh struggles to read the body language of Kincaid.
And what's funny is we talked about it a bit when they drafted Coleman. We talked about the archetype that Josh found a lot of success with, and it goes with what you were just saying. We talked about declarative separators, guys that got open early, consistently, but in a way that was QB friendly. Like, here I am, throw it at my numbers. I'm right here. You see me, I see you, bang. And that's actually a really good point. Like, just kind of the idea of Kincaid almost plays at his own space as at his own pace, I should say, as he like diagnoses and finds openings. And again, he's been doing it since Utah, but maybe that's contributing to the disconnect that we're seeing. And that makes a lot of sense, especially on these in-breaking routes where he's trying to fit in between windows as defenders are moving. Allen is reading those defenders. He's also letting the route distribution develop, and he's got to fit all that within the timing.
Right.
If you can't get that body language down and you don't know where a guy is going to sit, especially too, maybe if he's not practicing a lot during the week because he's got injuries and he's banged up a bit and he's moving at different paces, that could contribute a lot.
And here's one. This one's kind of outside of structure. Initial read here. So he's running a route over the middle, and you see him. Boom, he sits in that zone right there. But for whatever reason, Josh doesn't throw it in between these two defenders, and the safety's driving on it. He doesn't throw it. So then you see Kincaid start to slide right here. But again, this is kind of that secondary route. He's sliding to space, and then Josh eventually throws it, and Kincaid drops it. So they're not on the same page. I want you to see it from the end zone angle because it's not as easy as it looks, although they're paid millions to do this. Watch how Kincaid slides into that window. Boom. He could have threw it right there, but he doesn't, right? So Kincaid slides. And then now, again, all these guys are backing and compressing the pocket. You have this guy in the frame. Reminds me of the Broncos game. I think it was either last year or the year before, where Kincaid should have caught a ball over the middle in this same exact area. Now all these bodies are up in the face of Josh, and now Kincaid's trying to find where Josh is going to throw it. He's trying to get a gauge of, okay, is Josh going to try to layer it up over the top of the linebacker, or he's going to throw it out in front? And you can see he's kind of caught in between, and then next thing you know, it's outside of his frame, and he drops it.
Yeah, good call on the it was the one they lost to the Broncos, Russell Wilson and the Broncos. So 2 seasons ago. That stupid Sunday night game. Dorsey's last game.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
Right. Also, shout out to Spencer Brown with an absolutely violent and beautiful snatch trap against Odafe Owe outside. He feels him leaning, just chops it down. This one still infuriates me because there's so many like breadcrumbs of annoyance that made this play not work. Like, it's a little too far outside of Kincaid's frame, but it still hits him in the hands. He still should have caught it, but it's also a little tough to track. But also, we shouldn't have even gotten there. Like, I don't know why Allen doesn't hit him. Yeah, this is 3rd down. Kincaid runs his route past the sticks, but you're right there. Fire it. Yeah. I don't know if Allen senses Trenton Simpson, number 23, coming into the frame. So he's a little, I don't know if that makes him a little gun shy to throw it initially. Like, Kincaid sits on that route, bang, hit him. Even when he starts to drift and slide a little bit, like you said, he still could have hit him. But I feel like that shouldn't have happened. Just hit him coming off the break. He's open. You're looking at him. You see him. And then, this incompletion ensues, and it ends up being, a punting situation after that. Again, these are so annoying because there's so many little things that go wrong. It's not like this
That is
one
it.
giant, here's the problem. It's all these little breadcrumbs.
That's it, man. Like it's such a fine line between success
Yes.
and failure. And you saw a few little, breadcrumbs, as you said there, that led to that drop and incompletion. Here's one that just an inbreaker that is tipped against the Lions, where the play was there, but a good play by a linebacker getting his hands on the ball, and Josh can't get it up over the top of Campbell, and Campbell, bats the pass down, and this is a play that maybe even Kincaid still could have caught, but again, these in-breaking routes for Kincaid and Josh, they just struggle to connect. If he catches this, there's probably a pretty big play happening. And again, you see Campbell get a piece of it, and Kincaid still gets two hands on it. But again, at that point, the tracking's off, the rhythm's off of the play, and the ball goes incomplete.
Yeah, Buffalo Bills mock draft legend Jack Campbell from a couple seasons ago. Man, isn't it crazy that just a couple seasons ago, fans were like, Bills got to go linebacker in the first round. And now it's like, well, they got Bernard Milano and Dorian's on the come up. This is kind of cool. Yeah, that tip, I know it still hits him in the hands. This ball starts helicoptering as soon as Campbell gets a piece on it. That's such a hard catch to make. It's wobbling. It's going end over end. It's still a little bit off frame. Maybe if he turns his hands the right way, he catches it.
It's the thing with him. It's nuts, man.
I don't get it. But to each their own, whatever works for you. It got him this far. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I get it. But yeah, another one where it's a fine line. Allen puts this ball on a rope. Kincaid probably still has to extend a little bit, even if it's not tipped. But that ball's trajectory starts to go outside a little bit more, even further outside of Kincaid's frame than it was going to be. Plus, it's a duck and it's helicoptering. That's a hard catch to make. But again, another one where that's a big chunk play in a game where he had a couple nice plays in this one. But that's margin for error is so small.
Same game, the same type of play over the middle. This one is it's a little possible miscommunication. I'll talk about there in a second, but also an off-platform throw from Josh. Look, he was going to run it, and then last second catches Kincaid coming open. Same type of play, in breaker that goes incomplete. And so watch Josh. He looks to escape of the pocket, and then he sees Kincaid come open. So this throw, obviously off platform, you can see that that's not mechanically correct. But Kincaid is wide open here, and I don't know if Josh was expecting a sit route right here over the ball. It's a possibility. They are running mesh. Sometimes you have that sit, but usually when you play single high teams, which the Lions are, instead of having that sit right there with the post safety, you usually have that guy doing a deep dig or an in-breaking route at another level, the intermediate area. Again, the area we're talking about right now where Josh Allen and Kincaid struggled. So I don't know if there's a miscomm here. I assume that he's supposed to be running a dig. Josh is off platform and he misses a throw behind Kincaid, and you can see Josh is kind of upset about that. He knew he had Kincaid and he is not able to connect with his tight end.
This one in different forms and fashions is what happens so much this season. Like this specific type of thing where one of them thinks, okay, Kincaid thinks I'm going to continue. Allen's like, oh, he's going to sit. Or Kincaid's like, okay, I'm going to sit. Allen thinks he's going to continue. And they just disconnect and it doesn't, this just pisses me off because this one is a good representation of it, but this is week 15, and what annoys me more is I guess I would have liked this kind of conversation out a little bit at this point in the year. Like, hey man, this has happened to us like 4 or 5 times already. I'm looking for you to sit. Oh, okay, I thought you wanted me to continue. Okay, cool. We'll kind of fix that. But it prevailed throughout the year. And I don't know why they were never able to get on the same page. And I understand it from Kincaid's standpoint where he wants to keep working a little bit. I don't know if Allen in his field of vision, he sees the cloud corner to the bottom of the screen. So he's thinking like, okay, I don't want to throw it outside a little bit more because that guy might be able to get underneath. You're highlighting.
You see a coverage change here, right? Yeah. So you see the post safety initially, but then you're seeing that guy drop out to the deep half. So again, maybe there was some type of coverage adjustment where, hey, if they're in single high, you're going across, but if they're, going too high, maybe you're sitting right there. I don't know. It's a possibility, but either way, this still should have been hit, whether it's Josh correctly setting his feet and hitting Kincaid with his momentum going across the field, or again, Kincaid just sitting. Either way, it should have still been completed. I don't, regardless of there was some type of misread of coverage there. by either the quarterback or the tight end. This one just
Yeah.
has to be completed. It just happened too often, and like you said,
Yeah.
it would have been nice if it happened early in the year, but we're seeing almost the same. I did this for a reason, guys. A lot of these are the same plays.
It's
A
so
lot of
funny
these
because
are the
I
same
did I
plays.
did so much of this for the Kincaid episode last week, and so having to relive all these again, I'm getting so pissed off.
So you're getting that deep dig or deep crosser right here from Kincaid, and he and Josh once again aren't able to connect on this play. And you can argue, okay, well, maybe Josh expected Kincaid to be flatter on his route, and Kincaid carried it a little too much.
Mhm.
He's running away from Kyle Hamilton. Again, we can come up with all these theories. I don't care. Josh has to hit Kincaid here.
Yeah.
It's in the end, more times than not, it's on the quarterback to hit the wide receiver, the tight end, to make the adjustments and kind of erase bad route running or misread a
Yes.
coverage. They have to connect on this play, obviously, in a big game.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I still think there's an opportunity for the catch to be made, even though it's not an easy catch to be made whatsoever. And yeah, Kincaid could have been a little flatter as opposed to gaining more depth out of the break, but Allen's got plenty of time. He sees this the whole way, and there's good separation. Even if it's a ball where if it's just floated a little bit more.
Yeah, out ahead of him.
Yeah, Kincaid catches it. Hamilton tackles him right away. Cool, whatever, but it's still a completion. This is one where it's not being thrown with anticipation. It's not being thrown before the break. There's not pressure in Allen's face. Allen is seeing this route develop. So even if Kincaid is gaining depth a little bit more, and Allen thought, oh, okay, he's going to break it straight across at the 39 or whatever, and Kincaid keeps gaining depth. Even if there is that misunderstanding or miscommunication, there's still plenty of time for Allen to adjust for that, correct for that, and hit him accordingly. And so again, could be on Kincaid, could be on Allen. I'm in a similar boat like you. You got plenty of time here, and you see it the whole way. You got to make that throw.
Yep. I agree. Here's
don't yell at us. We know he won the MVP. We know. We understand. We got it.
Yeah, it's gonna come. I'm sure we'll hear it in the comments.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the MVP quarterback is the one who made the mistake. It's like, okay.
This was a great play by the defender, Patriots, Marte Mapu, number 15 right here. You have Kincaid running that deep crosser again. These deep crossers, these in-breaking routes, they were not on the same page last year. So you see Mapu does a great job breaking out. He runs it flat. And again, I don't know if Josh was expecting a different route, whether it's flatter and speed across or what, but you can see on this crossing route that Mapu was able to make a play on the ball on the from the pass from Josh Allen there against the Patriots.
Yeah, I don't know if it's similar to kind of the conversation we had where we've been having a lot of this like throughout this part with Kincaid. I don't know if there's something that scares Allen off from trying to throw this farther towards the sideline and leading him a little bit. Yeah. Again, that's a great play by Mapu. Great close, great speed, did everything but pick it off. That's a great break on the ball. But I feel like, and also Kincaid slows a little bit, so maybe Allen is trying to match him with it. I just feel like Kincaid did not carry this route to the sideline like he could have, and then Allen threw it a bit more towards where he was coming from as opposed to where he was going. The throw definitely helped Mapu make a play on the ball. Again, credit to Mapu for the break and the play on the ball, but this throw helped him to make a play on that ball, and there's just more space outside where you could have kept it away from Mapu and maybe let Kincaid get to it a bit more.
Here's one, Kincaid running across her from the bottom of the screen to the top, and another play where, Josh, you can argue, I think Josh is more at fault on this one for the placement of it. A really nice play from Nick Bolton, but in the end, Kincaid was open, and if Josh, once again, if he could just lead him towards the sideline and have, Kincaid run under it or across to it, throw it to a spot, I think these type of plays they would have connected on a lot more. Again, 10, 11 plus yards down the field.
Yeah, you could see Bolton is playing this more upfield. Like he opens up like he's going to carry this vertically, and Kincaid gets right across his face, and there's good separation. And then you see that separation go away because Kincaid, look at all the space to the sideline. Look at where the ball is. Look where Kincaid has to reach back for the ball, and also how it allows Bolton to make a play. Now, it would be nice if Kincaid had a bit more strength to survive maybe, the PBU attempt, and he could bring this in. He does the diamond this time, hits him right in the hands, It'd be nice if he was able to kind of corral that, bring it in, survive contact, and make the catch. So it is a bit on Kincaid, but he gets open. He separates. This ball has to be more towards the sideline. Again, this is another one to me where good play by Bolton, but Allen's throw gave Bolton the opportunity to make the play on the ball. Should Kincaid have still caught it? Yes, but Allen made this catch harder for Kincaid than it needed to be, especially considering, look at all that space. Look at all the space to the sideline. Kincaid shouldn't have to reach backwards for it while Bolton is full extension, just able to barely make a play. If that ball is just more in the center of Kincaid's chest or a little more out in front of him, that's an easy catch with no PBU attempt, no punch through the hands, no rip, nothing.
This should not have been a contested catch.
No.
I'm sorry. First things first, as soon as Kincaid, crosses the face right there, Josh looks out in front right there. You see his head kind of poke. He's looking at Bolton right now, and then he looks out in front of him. Okay, there's no one over there. The ball should be out. The ball should be out now. He waits a half a second, a half a click, and that allows Bolton to flip those hips, and then that is made up, that extension by Bolton at the catch point allows him to make a play on the ball. This should not have been a contested catch against Kincaid, against Bolton there. And now here's one you're just going to see. I think everyone remembers this one. This is, again, the same play we've already broken down several times. And, that the deep end breaker, 10+ yards down the field, he's open. Obviously, the pressure got to Josh, and he's living outside of script here, trying to make a play. And the ball is thrown up, and Kincaid isn't able to reel it in. But again, it just kind of caps off what we saw all year between Josh Allen and Kincaid. The struggles with chemistry, the struggles with rapport, the struggles reading each other's body language on these type of plays, specifically in breakers down the field. And we saw it play out on the Bills' very last offensive play of the season.
Yeah, this was a play that was not polarizing for anyone in any way, shape, or form. Everybody agreed on the pre-snap things and the post-snap decision and all the things. This just, it's so fitting that, in a bad way, that the last play of the season was like another another disconnect and non-success between Allen and Kincaid. And again, another one where like Allen makes an unreal play. I know the ball's fluttering a little bit and Kincaid still has to reach for it. Like, it's not the easiest catch in the world, but it still should have been a catch. Kincaid's got to come down with this ball. But again, it's just another where, of course, like these two just aren't able to connect when there's an opportunity for it, even though this is a high degree of difficulty overall. But yeah, man, how fitting and frustrating and hold on here. We're not saying, the comment here is, I've never seen a QB get so much blame for letting 5 defensive linemen rush free. We're not saying that on this play at all. Although I was going to say, talk about the pre-snap. We talked about this going into this game. That like when you do it. Go ahead.
4 strong, bottom of the screen, ball on the right hash, condensed set, and this is a running back
corner blitz.
That's a cat blitz all day. The Ravens did it the week before, not the week. Was it the week? Yeah, the week before.
The week before.
With was it Wiggins that came off the bottom of the screen versus this 4x1 set?
And Spags loves to do this all the time.
He always does it. He actually did it in their first matchup. McDuffie came off the edges. I think it was McDuffie again. Same type of thing. When the ball's on the right hash, you have a 4x1 set, especially when you have a running back as the furthermost receiver to the top of the screen, and that alignment is nasty. Teams love sending this cat blitz. Why? Because obviously this is a short side of the field. Safety doesn't have to cover as much to get over the top. So I will say, if you want to talk about blame, Josh is heavily to blame for not getting on the same page with his offensive line and setting up the protection or throwing some type of hot. A lot of the blame does lie on Josh. Now he makes a play, as he typically does.
Yes,
in his alien nature, makes a play, and Kincaid should have still caught it. But again, these kind of things, 1 or 2 plays, half a click off with a late throw, half a click off with accuracy, led to a lot of incomplete passes from Josh Allen to Dalton Kincaid.
Absolutely. Yeah, this was I don't have much to add. This was a part of the conversation I didn't think we'd have to go down again. But yeah, whether it's Allen not seeing it or Brady or whoever on offense not having this kind of put into his head, like going into like from a down and distance and a situation perspective and knowing your opponent, I'm not trying to pat us on the back at all, but if we're able to like know this, we talked about it. Like I was yelling at my TV, like the corner blitz, corner blitz, corner blitz. Like if we're able to diagnose that, I would like them to be able to diagnose it. But even so, Allen does something crazy and still makes a play. And then Kincaid still should catch it, even though it's hard. That's what makes that play so frustrating because Kansas City like gamed them up on that play and Allen still almost beat it.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And it's just, but he does deserve some of that blame, but that's a conversation for now, I guess, instead of another time.
So the last part of the conversation with Kincaid and why we think he still could be a breakthrough type of player is the strength. Of course, it's been also a hot talking point this year. He looks skinny. He doesn't look like he's been lifting. Like, just give it time. But most of the time, people are thinking like, okay, they need him to get stronger. They need him to be more physical to help with the run game, which is absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need him to be a world beater when it comes to run blocking. You just need him serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
But with that strength and physicality, that increase in those areas, to me, is going to help him just as much in the passing game and when we're talking route running. So on this play, 2 plays here to end this Kincaid segment. Top of the screen, he's running an out route. He is a primary receiver here. You see Lloyd get right in. I think that's Lloyd, number 33, right?
Yep, Devin Lloyd. Yep.
Gets into the body of Kincaid, and you see how that takes speed off the route, doesn't allow that smooth, fluid break at the top. And then you see, since he's hanging on him, he loses that speed, he loses that break. Josh is anticipating that break, and you see him turn around, and Kincaid's looking, and the ball is just out of reach. Again, 1st and 10 here, right at the marker, down the field to Kincaid.
Yeah, and just slightly off, really, what it looks like due to that collision point that Lloyd creates and Kincaid's inability to get out of that break clean. And that's such a great call with like the size and frame. I think so many people talk about it from a blocking standpoint, but it also matters a lot from a stem perspective and from a break perspective.
Yeah.
And he's still, big enough and strong enough to kind of detach from corners. You'll see him do it on tape, but when he's working on the inside, like he will, because a heavy amount of his snaps and targets came from the slot, you're going to get matched up with bigger bodies there. And you got to have the play strength at the point of attack or on the break or in the stem or even on your release at times to play through that contact and not get disrupted to this degree. And that little bit of disruption is the reason we see an incompletion here.
And we always talk about Kincaid's route running, his smoothness, his fluidity. And that's kind of, those are his calling cards and how he gets open. And so when you're trying to play within structure, when you're trying to play with rhythm and timing, and that timing is disrupted because of physicality from a defender on your tight end, these sort of things happen where you're just half a click off, half an inch off from completing a pass. So the very next week, or maybe it was 2 weeks later, same type of play, top of the screen, this time 3rd down. Look what happens on this play. Again, now this is a DB. He gets into him. You can see him do a good job of sticking to him. And then he breaks just short of the sticks there. And now as he turns, the ball's on him. It's pretty good anticipation from Josh. And then the improper framing, in my opinion, at the catch point, and you see it drop. And it's happened too often with him when you're talking the framing of a pass and how you're supposed to do it, where, usually if the ball is above your shoulders, you're framing, like you said, a diamond. You see him kind of go like the basket catch.
Yeah.
And again, I think that collision point, that physicality and disruption throughout the route stem and lack of strength and ability to use your body and strength to create separation, get off of me. I think that disrupts the rhythm, the tracking of everything that Kincaid offers as a route runner and a catch at the catch point when we're talking, against this type of contact.
Completely agree. We talked about him coming out, the fluid technicality that he operates with. He's so smooth and, there's very little wasted motion and movement in anything that he does. But if you cause disruption, it can cause problems for him a bit. And I think the basket catch is very relevant, especially for plays like this. And this is going to sound so dumb, but like maybe not dumb. When you're going for that basket catch, you can't get your hands out in front of you to get that ball. You by default have to let the ball get into you. You can't take your hands and go out this way and basket catch it. It's even this feels so awkward for me doing this because I've been so trained to do this nonstop. Like you can't get out in front. You have to let that ball get into you a little bit more. It changes the opportunity for defenders, changes the ability to catch the ball. There's a reason why that diamond technique or getting your hands out in front is so taught. But again, the bigger point is this one, previous play we showed it against the linebacker and Devin Lloyd. This is just a straight up DB, and that DB is physical enough to give him a problem. You'd like to see him win with physicality against the guy that he has the size and frame advantage against.
Yeah. So again, it was a rough segment for Kincaid, but we wanted to show you the areas where, he did struggle. Him and Josh did struggle, and why we think that in year 3, again, health withstanding, if he's healthy, again, a knee injury is a pretty big deal. PCL, I believe what it was, right? It was.
Yeah, he tore his PCL, and in the Texans game, separated his shoulder or something with the collarbone because, ironically, Allen kind of overthrows him on a deep ball, and Kincaid reaches out for it and comes down on the shoulder.
Game, right?
Or maybe it's the Colts game.
Yeah, Colts game, yeah.
Reaches out for it and jacks his shoulder up
on
a
miscommunication too.
On a miscommunication. That's why I think it's so funny.
I honestly didn't put that one in there because it was almost too obvious. You know what I mean? But
a little too gratuitous. That's fair.
Yeah. So I think that there is a good chance they can get on the same page. And we showed you, both sides are at fault in some of these plays, and that fine line between success and failure. And that's why we think that very easily Kincaid could have a breakthrough season and become that guy they need him to be, because they gave him those looks last year.
Yeah.
Again, second on the team in team target percentage, 5th overall in 25% in targets per route run for tight ends. He was getting looks. They just need to do a better job at connecting and reading each other to connect, especially when we're talking some of the plays down the field, because I think they got the underneath stuff in hand pretty well, but the stuff 10 yards or more, 11 yards or more definitely needs to be worked on.
And there's some really pretty downfield connections between the two of them. The double move against Denver is beautiful. The downfield ones against Tennessee.
Yeah, a ton of corners. Corner routes, they've aced that. The Lions game, the Titans game, is it the Jags? Maybe Jags game?
Yeah.
I think he had one. But yeah, the corner routes, he had a ton of success.
And it would be nice if they, I said this on the show last week, I don't want him to go away from the tight end stuff completely. But I'm going to say something we talked about last year. It would be nice if he was a little bit more of that quasi-X. We'll take that opportunity for him to work. And a lot of those corner routes and these successful plays that we were talking about last year came with him as that quasi-X because of the mismatch potential he can create. Lengthy segment there on Dalton Kincaid, but necessary given the conversation and the narrative around him from last year. Let's move on to a player, Erik, that I think there's more positives around after his rookie year, someone that I think a lot of fans liked coming into the team last year. And I think someone that fans have high hopes for this year, especially considering who his running mate / player is ahead of him on the depth chart and what that means for his future.
Yeah. So running back Ray Davis, we believe that partly because what you said, James Cook and his future, I personally don't believe that Beane's going to pay him. Even if he had a similar season and didn't surpass what he did this in 2024, I still think that he's essentially priced himself out from Beane. Who knows? But I'd say the chances are that he's eventually gone, which opens up obviously another running back that they picked in the draft in Ray Davis. And I just think that they're going to give him opportunities this year to showcase his ability to be that guy. I think that what he did in zone runs, when we're talking Josh Allen under center on running those wide zone runs, those mid zone runs, some of the gap stuff they did out of pistol 3/4 way into the year, I think last year, and then the back end. That is exciting, obviously, because we love pistol, but they were running counter tray and counter, gap stuff with Josh and pistol, which when you look at Ray Davis's film from college, he ran a lot of gap. And I think that's really, where he hangs his hat, but he did really well on outside zone, mid zone, inside zone, but also on duo. So a lot of stuff that, I think, he can't get to the corner like Cook can on some of those plays. He doesn't have that home run ability, but if you're talking a workhorse type guy that can carry the rock in the future, I think Ray Davis will have plenty of opportunities in high leverage situations to show the team that he can do that.
Yeah, well said. I don't have too much to add. I just like his skill set as a changeup with Cook and how it fits given their running foundation, like his ability to get downhill. He's got good feet. He's got good contact balance, a low center of gravity. He can run through and finish through contact, whether it's defensive backs or linebackers. Nice, fun little stat. 74.9% of his total yards came after contact last year. For
Yeah.
reference, 66.1% for James Cook. So there's a lot of tackles being broken for Ray Davis. Again, different type of back, more physical, lower center of gravity, but also able to make some plays as a pass catcher. That touchdown against the Dolphins where they blow the coverage on mesh rail, the downfield catch against the Jets in New York where he's working his way all the way across from the top of the screen, waving his hands to get Allen's attention. Allen scrambles, chucks it downfield. Some nice plays as a pass catcher, which were on display at Kentucky as well. And
he was, in many ways, him and Johnson were more reliable in the passing game, whether you're talking receiving or pass blocking, because James Cook was barely on the field for blocking reps. But yeah, in the receiving game, the year before, Cook struggled with drops, and they were not afraid to put Ray Davis out there. They were not afraid to put Johnson out there in those high leverage situations or in high leverage play or concepts that they set aside. Think about the Lions game when you run that play to Ty Johnson. You talked about Ray Davis and running it earlier in the year. They had success with him, whether it was, again, some pass blocking for Davis, but also those plays down the field when they were the first or second read in the passing game.
Yeah, and I think, Johnson and Davis having success on the ground and as pass catchers, and even with what Cook has done as well, speaks to another element there of why we think Davis could be a breakout candidate, that ability from Joe Brady to maximize his running backs. We talked about it when he took over for Dorsey a couple seasons ago. He's just so great at getting the running backs involved as pass catchers by design, scheming things up for them, making them primary reads and options for Allen. The mesh rail stuff is just one example. Slither and, the mesh running back, mesh traffic stuff is a good example. And he's good at maximizing running backs, whatever level of the depth chart they are at. And the success of all three running backs for the Bills last year, I think, is also a testament to Brady as much as it is a testament to the players.
Yeah. So with that, let's move on. We're falling behind here a little bit. Let's move forward to defensive tackle Ed Oliver, a guy that we believe is going to have a revival. And there's going to be a multitude of reasons that we're going to cover, but I want to talk about some stats and stuff that we saw from doing research and obviously watching all of the film. But it seemed like last year versus the run, those splash plays were kind of missing. His run stop percentage, according to PFF, was 5.2%. That was 66th out of 80 defensive tackles with a 50% as the filter. And in 2023, that was much higher. It was at 8.6%. And that's 23rd among the defensive tackles. So some of those flash plays, some of those plays where, hey, he's stopping plays for a loss, the TFL, or they only got 1 or 2 yards. He struggled in that area. You didn't see as many big plays and blowing up plays against the run. In fact, he missed 7 tackles versus the run, which was a 21.2% missed tackle rate, whereas in 2023, that was at 9.5% and 4 missed tackles versus the run. So he missed a handful of tackles last year, specifically against the run. I think, again, those two things really highlight or low light why Ed Oliver didn't stand out for some of those splash plays that we're so used to seeing him make in the backfield.
Yeah, and even some stuff from a pressure standpoint as well. 2023 had an unreal year statistically. From a volume standpoint, 28 less pressures in 2024 versus 2023. Granted, he played 3 less games. But what's very interesting, he had a similar win rate, 13.9% in 2023, 13.2 in 2024. So not a huge drop off there, but a 3.4 percentage point dip in pressure rate, a 2.5 point drop in pass rush productivity. And then another big one that I noticed, he had 29 cleanup pressures in 2023. Those are pressures around the edge of the pocket where the quarterback comes to the rusher. Usually think, somebody else gets the quarterback off his spot. And Ed's able to clean up. He had 29 in 2023. He only had 5 in 2024. So I also think some of his struggles as a pass rusher tied to who he's playing with, who else they have on the board, maybe speaks to a little more why they've added more inside rush, a little more pass rush pop on the edge, and just another reason of, kind of why we expect a bit of an uptick from him this past year.
Yeah, and if you whittle it down even more, we're talking pass rush and pressure created in high leverage situations. So listen to some of these stats. Third down pressure percentage in 2024 for Ed was at 10.9%. That was 19th among all defensive tackles. In 2023, That was 21.2%. That was second for defensive tackles. So,
and for those who don't know, like almost a full 11 percentage point drop is huge.
Yeah. So 21.2% pressure percentage in 2023 on third down, dropped to 10.9% in 2024. That's a big drop, as you said. And then again, those tackle for losses, those batted passes, those havoc plays, that was also a drop. In 2023, he was ranked third for defensive tackles on havoc plays at 4.6%. 2024, he was 26th for defensive tackles at 1.2%. So even in those high leverage situations, he wasn't creating the havoc and that pressure, and that he wasn't as disruptive in those third down situations when he could, typically he could pin his ears back and just go create chaos, go create disruption. Maybe he's not always making the plays, but he's setting up others in those situations. But we didn't see him do either of that really in 2024.
No, and those metrics really align when you go and you watch the tape. Just going back and watching a lot of his pass rush snaps, not just the pressures, but watching his pass rush snaps in general. And I just felt like he lacked juice in 2024, and almost like he got caught playing high a bit more, stalled out a bunch. That hezzy rush that we see him go to, and he'll usually like hesitate and go through somebody. It was a hesitation and then stall out, and guys were just getting into him. He started to uptick around the Lions game. He had 10 pressures that game. A lot of them coming against Graham Glasnow at left guard. But that game was wild. And he had a very good game as a run defender and as a pass rusher against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, and some nice statistical performances in the playoffs against the Ravens and Broncos. But just there wasn't that same level, like you said, of disruption or havoc statistically or literally. We didn't see that same type of force. And everybody knows what he is, right? A bit undersized, a guy that can get displaced in the run a little bit, but he can hold his own. He can drop the knee, and he can penetrate and drive guys back with the explosion he plays with. It just felt like he was unable to do that consistently through the majority of the year. And you see that on tape, and you see it even more so in the metrics that really put it into perspective.
And I love your point about you didn't see the juice, or you didn't see that hezzy rush or change of speed, and him challenging the lateral agility, working across the face of a guard or tackle. You didn't see that often. And I was going back and watching some of the film on Oliver, and I started questioning myself. I'm like, one thing that we saw a bunch in 2023 is Oliver in a 2-point stance, and we saw it in 2023, 2022, but we didn't see it often last year. Here's one that I said with the film, I said it's not planned, because you see him really trying to get Dwayne Carter lined up right here near midfield, but he gets caught not getting into a 3-point stance. But you can see what happens when he's able to convert speed to power and see the set of that offensive lineman. He jacks that guy up. Now, again, this is the Dolphins, but we're talking juice, the lack of juice and lack of ability to convert versus these type of pass sets. We just didn't see it often from Oliver. So I want to see them actually put him in these 2-point stances more often in 2025, because when they did it, the couple times that he was in it last year, one of them being in that Lions game, as you talked about here, you see him in 2-point stance, and just he can read the set and read the drop of the quarterback. He just takes that guy to the woodshed. And so they ran it way more in 2023, and it just allowed him to challenge have that two-way go, but also read the quarterback's drop. And so he can adjust his pass rush plan to go make plays like this, create that havoc. Again, 4.6% for havoc rate in 2023, third for D tackles. And it just seemed like anytime he was in that 2-point stance, he was jacking up guards, making plays on the quarterback.
Yeah, that's really sexy.
I know, right? Especially when you think about all the pieces they're adding on the D line and edge, and having those guys in 2- and 3-point stances. Who's rushing? Who's dropping? Man, put this guy in a 2-point stance. It helps him process quicker in obvious pass rush sets.
Yeah, it also makes first and second down that much more important for them to win on those downs and have, obvious or known passing down and distances on third, or as much as they can. Yeah, his size and his frame, like, he's built to just get under guys and pry them open. And he's got power. He's got explosion in his movements. And you see it a lot in these 2-point stance alignments. And if he can get to more of that speed to power transition game and going through guys, he does have quick hands and he's got good hand usage, so he can still beat guys, but he needs to establish that threat of, I can go right through your chest, or I can pry you open like he does there. You saw it a ton in the Detroit game. This is a good example here, but he did it so much. Poor Graham Glasgow.
Yeah.
Just getting him off his feet, knocking back, but prying open that inside shoulder with just pure power, getting his hand right into that breastplate or right underneath the armpit and turning and opening and forcing his way through guys' shoulders and winning the half-man relationship. And they've added so much juice inside. We've talked about what it means for the run defense and being handling double teams and so on and so forth. But when you add a guy like Larry Ogunjobi and TJ Sanders, you have committed to, we're going to rush the quarterback from the inside. And now you've got more guys who can penetrate on the inside along with that. And then with what they've done on the outside, I was going to say,
if he bumps inside in a 2-point, he can drop, he can rush, he can they're just with the pieces, like you said, to kind of wrap it up. They've added so much versatility from a personnel standpoint. And by adding that type of versatility and pieces along the defensive line, inside and outside at edge rusher, by adding that type of versatility with the personnel, you're adding the ability to get creative, to get exotic, and allow these guys that you're paying, like Ed Oliver, to go be a dynamic impact player, to be dynamic. He should see how, depending on how they use all these new pieces, he should see more one-on-one looks in pass rush situations. And that is a scary thought if they just put him in these positions to succeed. From what I was told, they were asking him to do some different things last year and more of a read type rusher. Just cut this guy loose. Enough with that. Dude, cut that dude loose. I'm done with it. Yeah. He's an impact dynamic player if you give him the opportunity to do that. Don't make him think too much. Go have him hunt on those third down and obvious pass rush situations. And again, do that by putting him in 2-point stance. I'm sorry. It helps him see things so much better when you're talking the complete picture of quarterback's drop. Okay, he's at the top of it. I need to change my rush because now the ball's coming out. That allows him to make impact plays. It allows him to make havoc plays for the defense.
I got so excited when you mentioned that point because it follows with some of my notes, like schematically and things. And the Cardinals game is a bit different because of how Kyler Murray is, but there were so many rushes in that game where Ed was almost like the low hole player or like a spy, like as a contain guy against Kyler. And he did that even against like non-mobile threatening quarterbacks throughout the rest of the year, or they're dropping off the edge and he's looping to the edge, but he's more of a contain guy than he's trying to penetrate and gap and attack. And I also think he had some times, this ties in perfectly to something we've talked about all offseason, where he would win inside, but then the offense is going quick game and the ball comes out right away. And so you don't get to see that rush come to fruition. Yep. He'll win on a spin or he'll win with some hand usage and the ball is out as he's beating his man in like 1.5 seconds, but the ball is coming out. So hopefully some of the coverage pieces they tweak on the back end. We get more of a marriage up front. We get to see some of that pass rush start to pay off a little bit because the ball isn't able to come out as quickly. And also, like, one last thing, this is small, but there were times where he would win and he was just getting bowled over by his own guys in like 2-man games, a lot of clunkiness and a lot of just ugliness with like timing and synchronization up front and moves. So I'm also hoping with some of the rush specialists they brought on this team, you get more of a cleaner feel up front and Ed can, just have some better tandem work. And also, like you said, see less double teams because he got a good chunk of those and it was unfortunate.
And the quick game is it's something we broke down, this draft season. The quick game matters. So the ball's out, then he's obviously not going to be able to get home. But he was so close so many times. He had 12 QB hits last year. Now he didn't have many sacks, but 12 QB hits was ranked 9th. And that was like, okay, that's Zach Allen had 29, Chris Jones 19, Jalen Carter 16, Leonard Williams 15, and then several guys at 14. Ed was in that next tier. And again, you talked about how many games he played and everything, but he is so close last year. And so if they can do some things to get the quarterback to hold on to it a little longer, because again, they were killed in the quick game. It's something we talked about all offseason. We talked to Bernard, pretty much everyone we talked about in the draft had to do with disrupting rhythm and timing of the quick game. If they can get those guys, the quarterbacks, to hold on the ball half a click longer, then you're going to have some plays where Ed can clean up, as you talk about, and that D-line can hunt a little bit longer without the ball getting out. So Ed Oliver, a guy that we do believe, thanks to the personnel they've added around him, he will get a lot more one-on-ones. We expect some sort of revival with him, especially we're talking as a pass rusher and those critical high leverage moments. We expect it from him. But one other guy before we get out of here on the defensive side who we expect to have or hope. I should say I
Yes,
hope
hope. Yes, hope.
he has a revival, and that's
Hope.
linebacker Matt Milano.
Yeah, somebody, you and I were texting about him um, towards the back end of last week. Just started out slow coming back from that injury, but you really saw week over week improvement. And by the time the playoffs came around, he was starting to legitimately show more and more flashes of being that pre injury Matt Milano. And with what Terrell Bernard has ascended to, if you can just get any semblance of all pro Matt Milano to
Mhm.
play next to Terrell Bernard, and then you also have all pro Taron Johnson playing on that second level, just man, like what that does for this defense. Milano is such a disruptor. We talk about Ed Oliver and the havoc plays and the splash plays. Milano, for years, when he's at his peak, is just causing chaos and triggering
Yeah.
and shooting gaps and blowing guys up and making plays in the pass and the run. If he can get back to that, especially with how Bernard triggers and his play style and how those two can mesh, he could be just a real force multiplier for this defense. Again, this is a big if at this point. Like, he's just got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
But even with that, I know it's gonna sound dumb. Like, I don't think he's injury prone. He keeps getting these injuries that like could happen to anyone. It's not like, oh, he always keeps pulling his hamstring. It's like, here's a broken leg. Here's this random arm injury. Like, he keeps
Mhm.
pulling these random stupid injuries out. It's so frustrating.
I agree with Swin. Milano was flying around at the end. Like even into the playoffs, I thought he did a good job of
Yeah.
making some of those splash plays.
That
And
close down on Mahomes, with
yeah,
that the odd mirror on like a third down in the AFC Championship. I was like, oh, he's back.
and that's a big role for him, right? As that spy, that low hole, aggressive spy. That's something I don't expect to go away, and I expect him to play that role in 2025. And we saw as the year went on, and he got healthier, some of the diversity and versatility they could do with him and use how they use him. And I think with again the pieces they added at the linebacker position and up front, I again once again hope that that opens up things for him. Maybe they don't have to rush him as often. Maybe they don't have to man him up in man coverage as often because now they have guys that can rush the quarterback with four, not have to add on, and now he can go play coverage and more of zone coverage, not necessarily man coverage. Because there are times last year, specifically like in that Broncos game, where there were a couple times the running backs got out of the backfield and he got toasted a little bit, but the
Mhm.
pass went incomplete.
Yeah.
So I do think his age, and with age comes diminishing
Mhm.
skill set. That worries me. But I do think, given his role, given his experience and understanding of this defense and how teams attack this defense, on top of the pieces they added in front of him, I do hope and expect
Mhm.
that he can have a revival season in 2025. He's been one of my favorite players to track developmentally from college to the NFL, and I want to see him go out with a bang. I think this was regardless. I think this is probably his last year in Buffalo, and I want to see him do it with a bang in 2025.
Yeah, with the contract restructuring and how that works, it looks to be his last year. And I just want him to be healthy. And I will feel good with whatever happens, even if he's not the same version of himself or Dorian Williams ascends further and takes his spot,
Right.
like whatever. I just don't want to see more injuries. I don't want to keep playing. I don't want to do the whole man. Imagine what they could have been if Milano had been healthy the past 3 years or whatever the hell. Like,
And,
because
and it might be cool too. And not sorry to interrupt.
no, you're good.
When they go to those three linebacker sets, initially it'll be with Dorian Williams. It's going to come week one. They're going to go three linebacker sets. You're
Yes.
going to have Dorian playing more of the Sam. So
Yeah.
he's going to be to the
Against
tight
against
end
Baltimore, you're gonna get a
against
ton of three
Baltimore.
linebacker looks.
Yep. So you're going to have Dorian to the strong side, which opens up Milano as a will. And in
Shoot.
4-3 overlooks, when you have that Sam linebacker being Dorian and Milano is the will, that frees Milano up to make plays, especially if you're talking against the run. And so those type of things. And then it'll be Michael Hoyt, who I believe will probably play some Sam at times, in those three linebacker sets. And
Yeah,
so
once it gets back.
those additions, I think, are going to free some things up for Milano to maybe even play some roles that we hadn't seen with him, again, as more of a will in the three
Mm.
linebacker set instead of at the point of attack, which again could free him up to make some splash plays.
Yeah, with the juice that they've added and the ass kickers that they've added and the penetration and rush piece, there is an opportunity for him to just get back to that trigger, click and close, clean up type of
Mhm.
guy where he and Bernard can just make plays on the ball and not have to worry about, oh, this climbing guard is huge and he got to me and I have to get around him or I got to stack and shed and figure out what to do. It would be nice to see him playing as free and easy as possible. And yeah, I'm very excited for what a healthy Matt Milano could be. And again, he was showing legitimate flashes of it as
Right.
we went down the stretch. There were multiple plays in that Chiefs game where he was just popping dudes, and you were like, oh, like, and that was him coming back off and working himself into game shape. So if he gets a full off season of just normalcy, he doesn't have to come back from that leg injury that he was coming back from last off season. He's another year removed from that, and then the arm injury and so on and so forth. Be really awesome thing to see Matt Milano if he can stay healthy and what he could mean for the Bills here in 2025. Erik, any final thoughts on anything regarding any of these players, anything in general, Bills or football related, as we start to wind down and say goodbye to the people?
No, we appreciate everyone tuning in live with us. I know it's kind of the end of the workday, so we talked about a lot of guys on this team that we expect to have some type of breakout season, revival for the Bills in 2025. Make sure to share your comments on who you think are going to do the same, whether it's on the offensive, defensive side of the ball. And again, if you missed the Kincaid talk, I know it's a polarizing subject. It's a polarizing player. Anthony and Kendall did a great breakdown with some film. We obviously did one here. So combine all of that, take that content in to kind of, fuel your thoughts and to shape your opinion, because we do a lot of work here. We do a lot of the advanced metrics research, a lot of the film research, and we try to be objective and all encompassing. And sometimes, I feel like fans only hear what they want to hear. And we saw even today in the comment sections, we're giving Kincaid, a first round tight end, a break and not really being harsh. No, I think we're heavy handed in putting some of the blame on him, but also heavy handed. And when we're talking about Josh, so we try to be objective, but you can guarantee that we're showing our work. And we're bringing the in-depth advanced analytics, stats, and the film. So maybe you don't agree with us, but all we can do is show our work and show you our reasoning behind our opinions. And I hope that you guys realize that we do that each and every week.
I don't have anything to add on that. That was beautifully well said. Well done. We appreciate you folks for tuning in, especially those of you who joined us live on this Wednesday afternoon. Thank you very much for tuning in. Whether you're watching live now on YouTube or watching on YouTube later, before you leave, please, 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 and thank you, drop a like on this video. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams. So if you have not already dropped a like here on YouTube, please do so. Please turn on notifications for the Cover One Film Room playlist here on YouTube and subscribe to the Cover One channel if you have not already done so. We have you covered pretty much every single day of the week with various levels of Bills coverage. Whatever your poison is, we have you covered here at Cover One. If you're listening to the show on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's very much appreciated as well. Please rate, review, and subscribe on those podcasting apps or platforms if you have not already done so. And word of mouth is also tremendously helpful for what we do here at the brand. So if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed this content, this conversation, whatever have you, tell your family, friends, loved ones about it. If they're Bills fans or if they're football fans in general, that word of mouth is tremendously, tremendously appreciated by us here on the show and on the team as a whole. Like Erik said, if there's anything on your mind, anything we didn't get to, guys that you think are going to be breakouts, put them in the comments on YouTube, or if you are an insider, feel free to get at us in the Discord, or feel free to get at us on Twitter. You can find Erik's individual account at Erik J. Turner. He also runs the Cover One handle at Cover and the number one. We also have the Cover One Film Room handle, which is at Cover One Film Room. They have my Twitter handle there up on the screen as well at pro__ant. So if you have anything that we did not get to or anything you want to speak about, let us know, whatever form or fashion that you can, and we will get to it as we can. Thank you again to everyone who tuned in live, watched later, listened later, whatever have you. We greatly appreciate it, and we're very thankful for it. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. We'll see you when we see you. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.